All right, y'all, welcome to the show. Wednesday, October 26th, 2022. I have way too much stuff for you today. So we had Fetterman versus Oz last night, their one and only debate before the election. And from that alone, I have like 8 different clips. And there's quite a bit to say about it. So have the night go. That's my only answer. All right, so I'll save that for just a minute. I'll lead with that story. Then we also have, of course, progressives, weaselly progressives, managing to piss off basically everybody in the country. They pulled this political stunt where they did something good, and then they were like, "No, we shouldn't do good things. Good things are bad." So we retract the good thing that we did. Okay, all right. I have a lot to say about that, as you may expect. Then I also have Ron DeSantis versus Charlie Crist. They had a debate the other night, and look, a little bit of some shocking results on that one. A little bit of that going on. A little bit of I don't know why they make. I don't know why it's dolphin noises that apparently went on at the debate, but there are dolphin noises like and God, I just got so much stuff today. The View versus Ted Cruz. We got Jon Stewart versus the Arizona Attorney General, who's a hilariously stupid election denier. And that's not even all of it. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump into it. So last night was Dr. Oz versus Fetterman, and it's their one and only debate. And let's not sugarcoat it here. It didn't go very well for Fetterman. Now, the reason it didn't go very well for Fetterman, I think it's fair to say, is literally just medical. Like, dude had a stroke 5 months ago, and he's having trouble articulating his thoughts. He's having trouble getting full, coherent sentences out. So, look, I'll save my overall conclusion until the end, but we got a whole bunch of clips here to get through. So let's start with Fetterman's opening statement. This is what he said right off the bat.
Let's also talk about the elephant in the room. I had a stroke. He's never let me forget that. And I might miss some words during this debate, mush 2 words together, but it knocked me down, but I'm going to keep coming back up. And this campaign is all about, to me, is about fighting for everyone in Pennsylvania that ever got knocked down, that needs to get back up, and fighting for all forgotten communities all across Pennsylvania that also got knocked down, that needs to get back up.
Yeah, so you could already see a little bit there, the struggling to get through it coherently. But, I mean, before the debate, his team set expectations low, and they were like, just so you know, he had a stroke, he's going to misspeak. This is like a lot of transparency for somebody in this current situation right after they had a stroke. This isn't a cognitive issue. It's more of a articulation issue, but set that bar in the basement, son. Like, set it down. So his campaign was saying that beforehand. And then at the very beginning of the debate, Fetterman goes out there and he basically does the same thing and says, yeah, look, I had a stroke. It's the elephant in the room. But I got knocked down. I'm going to keep getting back up. Oz didn't let me forget that I had a stroke. So, honestly, from a strategy perspective, I think this was a good move. I think it was good for the campaign to set the bar super low. I think it's great for him to reiterate at the beginning of the debate that bar super duper duper low. And again, you'll see why that was absolutely necessary. So now, let's go to Dr. Oz. This is one of the clips that stumbled across my feed last night. Here he is talking about the minimum wage.
Do you support raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour? Why or why not? You have 60 seconds.
I think market forces have already driven up the minimum wage. I was with a hotel worker actually here in Harrisburg a few months ago, and he was telling me how hard it was to live on the $15 an hour that he was getting paid. John Fetterman shoots too low. We want much more money than that. And there are many ways to achieve that, but John Fetterman thinks the minimum wage is his weekly allowance from his parents.
So that last line is just a petty shot at Fetterman. It's, the standard right-wing argument of, loser! You're a loser! You lived with your parents! By the way, there's like a colossal chunk of people in this country who are struggling, can't make ends meet, and they live with their parents. You want to alienate all of those people in one sentence. Well, congratulations, Dr. Oz. That's what she did. So that's the end part. But the beginning part, I don't know if you caught it. He said, well, basically, like, market forces have already kind of raised the minimum wage if you really think about it, bro. It's market forces. It's nobody's making $7.25 anymore, bro. What the fuck are you talking about, son? Ain't no market forces raising the minimum wage. If we got rid of the minimum wage and had pure market forces run the economy, there would be some people making like $3 an hour. Who are you kidding? There are plenty of people who make millions of people make $7.25 an hour. But I love how, see, what he's doing is a trick there. He's trying to say, who, me? Bro, I don't want anybody to even make the minimum wage. I want you to make above the minimum wage. I mean, somebody told me it was hard to live on $15 an hour. I want everybody to make like way above that, bro. Okay, do you have a plan where that can be the case? Of course not. In fact, his plan would facilitate the exact opposite of that. Which, by the way, if you do want to have an economy where nobody makes the minimum wage at all, period, and perhaps you wouldn't even need a minimum wage in this particular kind of system, do sectoral bargaining. There's some Scandinavian countries that have it, and it is true that in those systems, nobody makes a minimum wage, and there isn't a minimum wage because unions negotiate for everybody's wages, and everybody happens to do well under that system. So is that what you want, Dr. Oz? No, of course, he's hostile to unions. So this line right here is just a lie. It's just a total lie. Market forces have already, like, kicked in. It sounds like a Dave Rubin answer. The market forces, they'll kick in, and, it just works, and then good things happen. Like, what? That's not at all true. It's nowhere near true. Market forces, in this instance, are the enemy. What do market forces give us? Well, externalities is one thing. Pollution. If we leave everything up to market forces, we'd have child labor tomorrow. Market forces. What are you talking about? How ridiculous is that answer? But again, it's a political trick. Because he's trying to say, this guy only wants you to make $15 an hour. Me, bro? I want you to make like way above 15, bro. I want you to make way above 15, bro. Above 15, bro. Market forces, bro. What a scumbag. What a total scumbag. It's just, they're so gross. It's just gross. It's gross. In their system, everybody would make less. No doubt about it. All right. Next. Now, Fetterman explains why he supports raising the federal minimum wage. The substance of the answer is good. On the policy stuff, it's good. But you'll see he's gonna struggle to get through it.
The first question is for you, Mr. Fetterman. Do you support raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour? Why or why not? You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, I do, absolutely. I think it's a disgrace at $7.25 an hour. And how can a man, with 10 gigantic mansions, am willing to talk about a willing wage for anybody? Imagine a single mom trying with 2 children, trying to raise with them, realizing making $31,000 a year, $15 an hour. I believe every work has dignity and every paycheck must have dignity in it as well. True, I've always supported a living wage, and we make sure that everyone has economic security.
So, look, again, on the substance of it, true. But voters who are watching this, normies who are watching this, you gotta hope that they don't hold the medical issue against him. Clearly, the stroke is still affecting him in a massive way. If I was running his campaign, I would have given him the advice of like super short answers. Super short. So if he had stopped it here, let me run it back just a sec. If he had stopped it after this, watch what I do, it would have been chef's kiss.
Why not? You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, I do, absolutely. I think it's a disgrace at $7.25 an hour. And how can a man, with 10 gigantic mansions, am willing to talk about a willing wage for anybody? Imagine a signal.
There's actually no way I could clean this up. I thought there was a point, 5 seconds in, I could cut it off. Yeah, absolutely, I support a $15 minimum wage. He has 10 giant houses. He can't relate to these people. Okay, that would have been great, right? But he starts stumbling relatively early. Let's see what the follow-up question was.
Supported a living wage, and we make sure that everyone has economic security.
I have a follow-up for you, Mr. Fetterman. What do you say to small business owners who have told us that if the minimum wage were increased to $15 an hour, it would put them out of business? You have 30 seconds.
No, we all have to make sure that everyone that works is able to, that's the most American bargain, that if you work full time, you should be able to live in dignity as well, true. And I believe they haven't have any businesses being we can't have businesses being subsidized by not paying individuals that just simply can't evade to pay their own way.
Okay, Mr.
Yeah, so that second part was not a good answer. Look, this is a question that often gets brought up to people who support the minimum wage. Well, what about the small businesses that can't afford it, bro? What are you going to do? Are they just going to lay everybody off massively and you're going to have a giant spike in unemployment? And look, the reaction to that is you can look at the profits of a business, see whether or not they actually can afford a $15 minimum wage. And in the instances where they can't, which is not going to be nearly as much as the conservatives think, then you can have a subsidy program where the government makes up the difference and pays a living wage. So the business maybe could afford $12 an hour. The government, gives $3 per employee, and then boom, you have your $15 minimum wage. It's just that some of it will come from the business, and a little bit of it will come as a subsidy from the government. If we can subsidize fossil fuel companies for research and development when they don't need it, when they're massively profitable, if we can subsidize, you pick, name the thing that we subsidize that's absolutely goofy and silly and ridiculous because there's 1,000 of them, then we absolutely can subsidize people to have a living wage. That's the response to that. He didn't really give that answer. He basically said, you really shouldn't be in business if you can't pay a living wage, which is true, right? It's true, but I understand the concern of how do you deal with the economic realities on the ground, where in some instances it may lead to a spike in unemployment. There are studies overall, though, that say that actually doesn't happen. That, in fact, in places where they've raised the minimum wage and they've studied it, localities in certain states, that oftentimes it's the opposite effect on unemployment. Oftentimes you have a situation where unemployment goes down after raising the minimum wage. So it would depend on the facts on the ground. There may or may not be an increase in certain areas in the unemployment rate, and you can address it by telling the small businesses that genuinely can't afford it, look, the government will subsidize a certain percentage, and so they'll get their $15 an hour. All right, so now let's continue. This is actually the same clip that I just played for you, so let me go to this one here. So this is Dr. Oz asked about the fact that he's a total and complete con artist. He's been caught red-handed. He's been scamming people on daytime TV for years. You have these sweet old grandmas and grandpas who pop their Xanax and their blood pressure medication, and they sit there and, eat some disgusting sandwich that they just got from the grocery store. And they watch Dr. Oz, and they trust Dr. Oz, and Dr. Oz has been, let's go with hoodwinking them for a long time. So here's a decent question, and listen to the reaction.
First, Mr. Oz, did you or your company make a profit from promoting those products? You have 30 seconds.
I never sold weight loss products as described in those commercials. It's a television show, like this is a television show, so people can run commercials on the shows, and that's a perfectly appropriate and very transparent process. I ruffled a lot of feathers on my show because I told people the truth, and I'm proud of that. I'll do the exact same thing as a U.S. senator.
Okay. Just so everybody understands, this is a flat-out lie, and it is a brazen lie. Go watch the More Perfect Union video on Dr. Oz and his entire career in TV, and what you'll find out very quickly is he is more for sale than anybody I've ever seen. Any product from any shitty company would come up to him and say, look, we'll throw you X amount of money, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, to hawk our shit, do an episode on our shit. He would do it, and, every year or two, you'd have, new miracle weight loss pill, and all sorts of garbage. And he was getting directly paid by these companies. The evidence for these products was nearly non-existent in many cases. There was a group of physicians that wrote a letter to, I think it was Columbia University, wherever Oz worked for a while, and they basically said, don't fucking work with this guy. He's a con artist. He's a scammer. I mean, this guy is effectively Donald Trump in a sense, right? 6 different business bankruptcies, terrible products, shook people down, committed fraud with Trump University, among other things. This guy, he was conning people for years and years and years. And for him the bold-faced lie is amazing to me, man. It really is something. Because, like, he knows that's not true. There's no way it's just like, if I say it like this, I'm actually technically correct, but, it's not the whole picture. No, he knows he's lying when he says this. He knows he's lying. Again, go watch that video from More Perfect Union. The details are endless. Just total scam artist. So, but look, again, in terms of, like, the presentation of it, he comes across looking like, I'm the senatorial man who's very serious and has it together. And unfortunately, with Fetterman's stroke impacting him, he comes across like barely coherent, if coherent at all. All right, so now, this is probably the best Fetterman burn of the night, in my opinion. Watch this.
Again, it's the Oz rule. He's on TV and he's lying. I never supported any of that thing. He keeps talking about Bernie Sanders. 3 years ago he was on his show and he hugged him and he said, "I love this guy. You know what? Why don't you pretend that you live in Vermont instead of Pennsylvania and run against Bernie Sanders? Because all you can do is talk about Bernie Sanders. Because my truth is that healthcare is a basic fundamental right. And I believe in expanding that, and I believe about fighting for health care, the kind of health care that saved my life."
Thank you.
That was probably one of his best moments. Yeah, what they're trying to do, this is the classic Republican policy, is like, this guy Fetterman, bro, really extreme. He's an extremist. He's a socialist. I mean, he supported Bernie Sanders. The idea that they think this is a good line of attack is absolutely hilarious, because in polls, to this day, Bernie Sanders ranks as the most popular politician in the country. This guy over here, bro, he's like that really, really popular guy that everybody likes. Ridiculous. That's not going to help you, bro. That's not going to help you. And, credit to Fetterman for not being scared of his own shadow, because, he reiterates in that answer there, yeah, I think healthcare is a human right, and we want to expand access. You don't want to do that. So, again, probably his best answer. I love how he clonked him over the head with the carpetbagger argument of like, dude, you're from New Jersey, okay? What are you doing here? Oh, you want to bring up Bernie Sanders every other sentence? Well, you should pretend to live in Vermont next time and run against him, dick. All right, so now, this is Fetterman's worst moment. I'm going to give you Fetterman's worst moment here.
You're saying tonight that you support fracking, that you've always supported fracking, but there is that 2018 interview that you said, quote, "I don't support fracking at all." So how do you square the two?
Okay, now, first let me say that long pause there. People are like, If you watch, there's another clip that was floating around on Twitter where at the beginning of that question, that woman says, "Dr. Oz," and then she asked the question. So he thought the question was directed to Dr. Oz. And so that's why that long pause was in there. Now, that's not me saying he didn't have cognition issues or verbalization issues in this debate. Of course he did. It's obvious, right? But that particular pause was clearly because the person who asked the question said the wrong name first. Okay, I just want to make that clear. But this doesn't get any better at all.
I do support fracking, and I support fracking, and I stand, and I do support fracking.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that didn't go well. that did not go well, Johnny Boy Johnster. By the way, people immediately pulled up. He has plenty of tweets. One from like 2018 where he says he doesn't support fracking. Now he says he does support fracking. Yeah, I mean, I think he realizes I'm running for a U.S. Senate seat in Pennsylvania, and the conventional wisdom there in Pennsylvania, and probably the majority position among the voters, is fracking is good, it brings us jobs, it's necessary, so they support it, and so he's kind of running away from one of his positions, which I think was his true position, of like, this is not a good idea, because this is one of those areas where, on the left, there's a little bit of a tension between environmentalists, who are, again, solidly on the left, but also, like, unions, solidly on the left. Unions would want the jobs, would be pro-fracking, in many instances, of course. And the environmentalists, it's the opposite. They care more about the climate. They think, hey, we could, find some other way of getting people jobs that doesn't involve more fossil fuels. And so he didn't handle that well. Although, to be fair, I think Dr. Oz's position as well on fracking is, I don't know if he flip-flopped or something, but in terms of the way he answered this question, the way Fetterman answered this question, definitely his worst moment by far. All right, now I'll give you Dr. Oz's worst moment. So here we go. This went kind of viral. You can see 1.8 million views here on Twitter. As I always tell you, though, I think Twitter juices their numbers a little bit. It's probably, even if it's half that, it's still a colossal video. It's amazing to me he let this slip out, because this shows tremendous lack of political instincts.
I want women, doctors, local political leaders, letting the democracy that's always allowed our nation to thrive, to put the best ideas forward so states can decide for themselves. I want women, doctors, local political leaders, letting...
So that's the part where everybody's like, oh, this is about a right to choose. And he says, I don't want anybody making that decision but women, doctors, and local political leaders. What? How did you not know that wasn't going to sound good? How did you not know that? What he's trying to do is take the Republican classic position and give that take. The Republican classic position is, leave it up to the states, bro. You leave it up to the states, bro. Hey, man, liberal California, liberal New York, they want to allow abortion. That's cool. That's cool. But, if Mississippi wants to ban it, if Alabama or Pennsylvania wants to ban it, let them ban it. So that's his position. Now, the real position of people on the right is not that. That's their fake position. The real position is, let's do a national abortion ban. But this is Oz trying to sound quote-unquote moderate and not say, I want a national abortion ban. He's trying to sound more centrist and reasonable, and so he's like, yeah, leave it up to the states. But in the process of making that argument, he says, leave it up to women, doctors, and local political leaders. I don't think that's going to play well. I do not think that's going to play well. All right, and so then, I think this is our last clip here. So, here is Oz giving his closing statement, and Fetterman... Now remember, Fetterman, throughout this whole debate, he has screens in front of him where it basically takes the speech that everybody's giving around him, and it transmits it to text on the screen. It's like closed captioning in real time, or as close to real time as you can get. And so Oz is giving his closing statement here, and you'll see that Fetterman butts in to make a point. Okay, here we go.
I've talked to seniors worried their Social Security checks wouldn't go far enough with the raging inflation. I've talked to couples want to make their first down payment on a new house and they can't afford it anymore because of interest rates. I've talked to families.
You want to cut Social Security.
Mr. Fetterman, it's his turn for his closing.
So, is what Fetterman saying there factual? Absolutely. I mean, this is one of the fucking planks that the Republicans are running on. You had Ron Johnson out there, and you had, what's his face? The guy who looks like a literal gremlin, like a goblin. Senator Rick Scott from Florida. Like, he made this, this is our agenda for the Republicans. And, yeah, one of the things was, we need to re-up Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid in one instance, they said every 5 years. And then in another one, I think Ron Johnson's position is every year. So take it out of the mandatory spending category and make these corrupt ghouls in D.C. have to vote on it every single year, which, of course, would destroy Social Security. It would destroy Medicare. They want to privatize these things anyway. And that's their agenda. That's their agenda. So Fetterman's pointing that out. He's like, you can't fucking give this Weasley-ass point of, I've talked to grandmas who are really struggling, bro. Struggling with their Social Security and whatnot. You can't say that as if you're going to come in and save the day. You're going to actively make that worse. And so Fetterman butts in. So on the substance of it, correct. Factual. On the optics of it, when somebody's giving their closing statement, everybody knows you're supposed to just shut up. And that's the way it's always worked for every debate ever. So the optics of it, I'm not sure. Look, and so here's my final breakdown of the debate. Here's my final conclusion. If the debate, and if people vote based on likability and based on policy, then Fetterman's going to hang on and win, right? But if it, unfortunately, ends up being the intangibles, like presentation and optics, then Dr. Oz is going to win. And the fact of the matter is, there was a time when Fetterman had a gigantic lead. Now that lead, in the average of polls, is down to 2 points. And that was before the debate. Like, before this happened. So, and the question is Oz going to get a bump? If so, how big is the bump going to be? And look, I mean, honestly, I think it's a real test for voters in Pennsylvania. It's like, what do you value? Do you want the smooth-talking con artist? Is that what you want? You want the person whose presentation and optics are on point? Who looks senatorial? Or do you want basically the regular dude who's currently recovering from a stroke and clearly having issues with verbalizing coherent sentences, who is correct on the policy and significantly more likable? And so, you know, I saw a lot of doomerism and defeatism on left Twitter in the wake of this debate, and all I'll say is this. I'm agnostic as to what's going to... I really am agnostic as to what's going to happen. And one data point for that opinion is, look who's president right now. And it's not like Biden was doing any better when he was campaigning, right? He was still having a brain fart every other day. He was still a zombie and half dead. He was still wandering around aimlessly while trying to get off stage every time he gave a speech. So, it's very possible that voters just overlook everything about the stroke, everything about the cognition issues at the moment. That's very possible, you know? But, I mean, I'll just put this out there. The fact of the matter is, like, if we're having a vote on a $15 minimum wage, is Fetterman going to be coherent enough and with it enough to say, I vote yes? We all know the answer to that question. Every single one of us knows the answer to that question. Now, is he going to be able to give a rousing speech on the floor of the Senate? That's a different question, and as of right now, the answer is no. But we'll see what Pennsylvania voters decide. But the fact of the matter is, this one is going to be the nail-biter race. This one right here. Or, you know, it'll either be close or Oz might pull away. Those are the things that are on the table right now for this race. But it's interesting how this race and the Warnock-Walker one totally flipped. So anyway, there's your breakdown. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.